It is just gone. It's just gone 6:42. Let's go back to the riots of yesterday. Joining us now, we've got Ashok Kumar from the London School of Economics Student Union and Stacey Whittle from the Education Activist Network. Sounds a very sinister group, though. Is that the militant wing of the NUS or something, the Education Activist Network?
Absolutely not. The Education Activist Network is a group that was set up a few months ago to bring together education activists across the country, lecturers and education workers, as a place where we can coordinate the resistance against these massive cutbacks that we're facing from the condemned government with absolutely no mandate.
So is throwing fire extinguishers off roofs part of the plan there?
I think that was an isolated incident, which the media is
somebody could be charged with attempted murder. You know, that's extremely serious.
I think the basic premise of your question plays into the arguments that the media has been perpetuating since day one. You don't consider the sort of violence and the brutality of the policies that instigated why 5,000 students were protesting, and you don't talk about the fact that when the fire extinguisher was thrown, that, you know, all 5,000 in unison were saying, stop throwing stuff. I mean, we stand in solidarity with those students and reject the premise that somehow that this was a violent protest. Yes, there are isolated incidents, but the masses there were absolutely about occupying and protesting the headquarters of an organization that were, I mean, a few windows can be mended and replaced. You can't mend a generation of people that are deprived and stripped of their right to education.
No, of course, but it is unfortunate that that's the one instance now that people will remember these riots for, you know, regardless of the thousands of people that were peacefully protesting. I mean, it got our viewers certainly quite riled. I mean, Julian Bristol has written in saying, disgusted with the antics of the students. Protests, yes. Riots, no. If I were in charge, I'd treble the fees to completely exclude those violent lowlives from entering our universities. I mean, it's pretty full on, to be fair. I mean, are you worried about losing public support with this?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think what we've actually demonstrated with 52,000 students marching through the centre of London, which is an absolutely amazing turnout, we're actually an inspiration to people, you know, who are struggling to make sense of these cuts which are being portrayed as, you know, inevitable and necessary when we know that they're ideological. And I think we're actually an inspiration for, you know, firefighters, the BBC workers, council workers all across the country who are facing these massive cutbacks, and we have to stand up and say, no, we will not accept these cuts.
But sort of boring grey people like me, who are sort of taxpayers in middle age, are the ones you've got to keep on side with this. And there's a huge turn-off factor that people understand the anger and understand the hardship of students. They've probably got kids themselves who are going to be loaded with a load of debt. Nobody's happy, but you need to keep the support of people like us. And when you see scenes like that, you lose support. You get it in the papers, but you lose support. You'd understand that.
Well, I don't
there's a risk that you lose support. You must understand that.
Well, I don't understand why, one, this myth and this narrative is being perpetuated as, oh, it was a meticulously planned out event. It was actually spontaneous, and many people, I mean, there were a few people that, you know, there were a lot of targets around the way. And it's a narrative that's being constructed even now. I mean, right before we spoke, you said that you were part of student protests, and I'm sure that middle-class people and middle-aged people had the same reaction then. I mean, the fact is that the head of the nurses union who spoke right before you in the green room told us that he fully supported what the students did. He didn't agree with a few actions, but he agreed with targeting at the headquarters. So, I mean, I think that somehow saying that we're going to alienate people, if you tell people that they should be alienated, they'll get alienated.
Don't you get the general picture, though, that it's generally thought that everyone should have an education? Ideally, it would be free, OK? And everyone is educated regardless of what kind of background you come from. There's just not the money to fund that. When we try and send everyone to university, there's not the money to pay for that. There's an unsquareable circle. Where should the money come from? Have you got an alternative plan for funding?
Absolutely.
Which is what? Go on.
I think that the notion that somehow higher education cuts and public sector cuts and 70% cuts to council housing is inevitable is something that's being perpetuated by a coalition government and a government even before that bailed out banks instead of students, that, you know, a small group of bankers gambled with everyone else's money, and the Treasury just put it at 1.2 trillion pounds, the full amount of money that they were bailed out. You've seen 8% cuts in defense spending, but massive ideological cuts to social spending. To somehow say the money isn't there, the fact is the money's there. It's about where the money's being spent and who's being taxed for it.
Okay. Any good chance? Any good chance on the march? Can I tell you what I did? Walking across Westminster Bridge, I can still remember it. We went, no ifs, no buts, we want Kenneth Baker's nuts. You've got to say that's class, isn't it?
That's good. That's a good mark.
Can
All right,
beat
thank
that?
you. You can't use that because he's not Education Secretary anymore, by the way.
We've got Cameron, get out.
Hang on, is this
we know
going
what
to get
you're
us
all
into
about. Cuts, job losses, money for the bosses. University.
Oh, that's good. Let's give a round of applause for that. That's very good.
That's from Sussex University.
That's it. All right. They're teaching you something down there. Excellent. Thanks both for coming in. Thanks very much indeed.